the file on my desk. 847 pages. Federal Financial Supervisory Authority Investigation Reference Number 2019/FMM/4148. Subject: Suspected market manipulation. Subject name: my name. The company was called Meridian Payment Technologies AG. German fintech company. Payment processing for online commerce. Publicly listed. Peak valuation £24 billion. Between 2011 and 20, Meridian reported consolidated cash balances that included £1.9 billion held in escrow accounts at the Bank of Manila Pacific in the Philippines. The Bank of Manila Pacific had no record of any escrow relationship with Meridian. The £1.9 billion did not exist. I work for the Frankfurt Financial Tribune. I started investigating Meridian accounting irregularities in 2014. I published 23 articles between 2014 and 2020 raising concerns about Meridian's reported cash balances. In February 2019, the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority opened an investigation. Not into Meridian. Into me. The allegation was market manipulation. The theory was that my reporting had artificially depressed Meridian's share price, that I was spreading false information to benefit short sellers, that I was part of a coordinated attack on a successful German technology company. The investigation lasted 18 months. During the investigation, I could not publish. My lawyers advised silence. They said, anything you write can be used as evidence that you're continuing the manipulation. So I stopped writing about Meridian entirely. During those 18 months, Meridian raised £1.2 billion in new capital from investors who did not know the cash did not exist. I knew the cash did not exist. I was silent. In June 2020, Julian del Desol for insolvency. The CEO was arrested attempting to board a private aircraft at a regional airport outside Munich. £1.9 billion in cash was confirmed to be non-existent. Ernst & Weber, Meridian's external auditors, paid a regulatory fine of £400 million. No criminal charges. No admission of wrongdoing. Settlement. The Federal Financial Supervisory Authority closed its investigation into me without findings. No charges. No explanation. Just case closed. It has never explained why the investigation was opened. I want to know why. I received over 400 threatening communications, some by email, some by post, some to my home address. 3 of my sources were identified through legal proceedings initiated by Meridian, subsequently dismissed from their positions. I had promised them confidentiality. The proceedings broke that confidentiality. They lost their jobs. I made a Freedom of Information request. I asked for the complaint that triggered the investigation. I asked for the internal review that approved opening the investigation. I asked for any communication between Meridian and the regulator regarding my reporting. It took 3 years, multiple appeals, 2 separate tribunal hearings. I received the file 6 weeks ago. 847 pages, heavily redacted, but not completely redacted. The complaint was filed by a law firm representing Meridian. February 4th, 2019. 47 pages. It alleged that I had published false and misleading information about Meridian's cash position, that I had refused to correct errors when they were pointed out, that I was working with short sellers to manipulate the share price. The internal review was completed in 9 days. February 13th, 2019. The recommendation was to open a formal investigation. The reasoning was that the complaint was detailed, the allegations were serious, and there was sufficient evidence to warrant further inquiry. I read that review 11 times. I was looking for the moment where someone asked, should we investigate the company instead? Or should we investigate both? I did not find that moment. On page 341 of the file, there is an internal memo. September 2019, 7 months into the investigation against me. The memo summarizes a meeting between senior regulatory officials and representatives of Meridian's legal team. The meeting was requested by Meridian. The purpose was to provide additional context for the investigation. The memo records that Meridian provided the regulatory authority with a dossier of information about me, my sources, my methodology, my personal finances, my communications. The memo describes this information as helpful context. I closed the file when I read that. I sat at this desk for 20 minutes. I didn't move. Then I opened the file again. I read page 341 4 more times to make sure I understood what it said. It said exactly what I thought it said. The company I was investigating gave the regulator a dossier about me. The regulator accepted it. The regulator described it as helpful context. The regulator used it. I have the dossier. Meridian gave me a copy during discovery proceedings before the collapse. Standard disclosure process. They had to provide all documents they'd shared with third parties about me, including the regulator. I know what's in it. I know how they got it. It contains my bank statements, 3 years of personal bank statements, complete transaction history. It contains transcripts, phone calls. The technical analysis suggests professional interception equipment. That's what the police said when I reported it. Professional equipment. It contains the identity of 3 sources. Sources I have never named publicly. Sources I have never confirmed. The sources are named correctly. Full names, employment details, contact information. They knew my sources. They had my bank statements. They had my phone calls. They gave this to the regulator. The regulator described it as helpful context. I've asked, through formal channels, I've written to the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority. I've written to the Ministry of Finance. I've filed parliamentary questions through a sympathetic member of the Bundestag. The responses are identical. The investigation was closed without findings. We do not comment on closed investigations. The matter is concluded. The matter is not concluded. I want to know why the investigation was opened. I want to know why the regulator accepted a dossier from the company I was investigating. I want to know what they did with the information in that dossier. I want to know who approved the meeting on page 341. I don't expect to receive answers, but I'm asking anyway. That's what journalists do. I received one other document in the disclosure. I haven't mentioned it yet. It's dated June 18th, 2020, 12 days after Meridian filed for insolvency, 6 days after the phantom cash was confirmed. Internal email. Senior official at the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority to the investigation team. Subject line: Case 2019/FMM/448. The email is 3 sentences. First sentence: in light of recent developments, recommend immediate closure of the above investigation without findings. Second sentence: no further action required. Third sentence: please ensure all case materials are appropriately archived. That's the entire email. No explanation, no analysis, no acknowledgement, no apology. Just close it. I printed that email. I keep it separate from the file, in my desk drawer. I take it out sometimes. I read those 3 sentences. I tried to understand what the person who wrote them was thinking, whether they knew what they were closing, whether they cared. I won a journalism prize last year, European Press Prize for investigative reporting, for the Meridian coverage. The citation said I had shown courage and persistence in the face of intimidation. I accepted the prize. I gave a short speech. I thanked my editors. I thanked my sources. I did not mention the investigation. I have the prize on a shelf. I look at it sometimes. I would like an explanation more than I would like the prize. I'm still writing. I'm still investigating. I'm still asking questions. That's what I do. But I want you to understand something. When you find something wrong and you report it, and the people whose job is to investigate wrongness investigate you instead, something breaks. Not your resolve, not your commitment, your certainty. Your certainty that the system works the way you thought it worked. I thought I find things, I report them, the system responds. I was wrong about the third part. The system responded. It investigated me. The file is still on my desk. I haven't put it away. I keep thinking I'll find something I missed. Some explanation I didn't see the first time. I've read it completely. Every page, every redaction, every memo, every email, every note. There's nothing I missed. Page 341 is the explanation. I'm not going to give you my name, not because I'm afraid, but because I'm applying for the position of Deputy Director of Financial Market Supervision at the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority. Second round interviews are next month. They've told me I'm the leading candidate. I should tell you what was on page 341. It's an internal memo between two senior officials. Neither of them work at the regulator anymore. The subject line says, Journalist Inquiry, Preemptive Assessment. Preemptive. They opened the investigation 3 days before I contacted the company. Someone told them I was looking. Someone told them what I'd found. Someone told them before I'd even finished my reporting. The memo doesn't say who. It says, source reliable, concerns credible, journalist has history of, and then 3 lines are redacted. 3 lines about me, about my history. I requested the unredacted version. They said it contained personal information that would breach privacy protections. My privacy, my own information, about me. They won't let me see it. The company was called Steinhoff Financial Services, not the large one, a subsidiary, small, specialized lending. I'd been tracking their loan book for 18 months. The numbers didn't make sense. High-risk borrowers, low default rates, extremely low. Mathematically impossible, unless they were reclassifying defaults as restructured loans, moving them off the books temporarily, bringing them back later, hiding losses. I had documents, internal spreadsheets, a whistleblower, not from inside the company, from a borrower, someone they'd tried to silence with a restructuring agreement. I was careful, very careful. I verified everything, cross-referenced dates, checked registrations, spoke to 3 other borrowers. I hadn't contacted the company yet. Standard practice. You build the story, then you ask for comment. But I had spoken to someone at the Banking Association. Background only. Technical questions about loan classification standards. I didn't mention the company. I didn't mention specifics. I thought. Three days later, I received a letter from the regulator informing me that they were investigating potential market manipulation, that I was required to provide all documents related to Steinhoff Financial Services, all sources, all communications. Before I'd even published, before I'd even contacted the company, they were investigating me. I called my editor. He called our lawyer. The lawyer said, comply. Provide everything. You've done nothing wrong. This will resolve itself. I complied. I gave them everything. The documents, the spreadsheets, the names, not the whistleblower. I protected that source, but everything else. The story ran 2 weeks later. My editor said we couldn't wait, said holding it would look like we had something to hide. The company responded within 4 hours, called the story defamatory, demanded a retraction, said they were cooperating fully with regulatory authorities, said the regulator had already investigated and found the journalist, me, had engaged in improper information gathering. They made it sound like the investigation had cleared them and implicated me. It hadn't. The investigation was still open. Both investigations. Mine, and I thought theirs. Three months later, Steinhoff Financial Services announced voluntary liquidation, insufficient capital reserves, market conditions, strategic realignment of the parent company. No mention of loan classification, no mention of hidden defaults, no mention of my reporting. The regulator closed both investigations the same day. No findings, no enforcement action, no explanation. I was cleared, technically, but the company was gone. The evidence was gone, and my name was in their file, page after page. My work, my methods, my sources. 847 pages. I kept working. I'm still working. But something changed. Other companies started declining comment. Not openly hostile. Just careful. We're not able to speak with you at this time. We've been advised not to engage. Perhaps you could direct your questions to our legal team. Sources became harder to find. Meetings cancelled. Calls unreturned. Someone told me, off the record, that I was considered difficult to work with, that I had a history of adversarial reporting, that companies viewed me as high risk. None of that was in articles. None of that was public. It was in the file I now have, the file the regulator compiled, the file that describes me, my work, my character. Page 129. Journalist demonstrates pattern of premature disclosure without adequate consultation. Page 276. Source reliability concerns regarding individuals willing to cooperate with subject. Page 448. Assessment suggests professional motivation may be influenced by reputational rather than factual considerations. They investigated my motivations, my professionalism, my character. Not the company. Me. I applied for the position 6 weeks ago. Deputy Director of Financial Market Supervision. The same department that investigated me. My editor asked why. He said, "You want to work for them? After what they did?" I said yes. Because I understand now. The system doesn't work the way I thought, but it works. It has a logic, a structure, a way of responding. It responds to threats, not wrongdoing. Threats. I was a threat, not because my reporting was wrong, because it was correct, because it was public, because it couldn't be contained. The company collapsed anyway. The losses were real. The defaults were real. Everything I reported was real. But it collapsed quietly, voluntarily, without a regulatory finding, without public accountability, without anyone being responsible. That's how it works. In the second interview, they'll ask me about the investigation. I know they will. It's in my file. It's part of my record. I've prepared my answer. I'll say, I learned from it. I learned that effective regulation requires trust. That public disclosure can undermine resolution processes. That collaboration between regulators and market participants depends on discretion, on judgment, on understanding when to act publicly and when to act quietly. I'll say, I understand better now how the system works. And they'll hear, she's learned. She's changed. She's one of us now. I will be good at the job. I will be very good. I know how companies hide things. I know what irregularities look like. I know how to find them. I know how to investigate them. And I know now when to stay quiet, when to resolve things internally, when to accept a voluntary liquidation, when to close an investigation without findings, when to protect the system instead of exposing it. That's what they want. Someone who understands. Someone who's been tested. Someone who's learned which rules matter and which rules are flexible. I'm not giving you my name, not because I'm afraid, but because in 6 weeks, maybe 8, I'll be inside. I'll have access. I'll see the files they don't release. I'll read the memos they don't redact. I'll sit in the meetings where they decide who to investigate, and why, and when. I'll understand how it really works. And then I'll decide if I'm there to fix it, or if I've just learned to be part of it. I don't know yet. I don't know which one I'll be. But I'll be inside.